Somewhere in the frozen heart of Siberia, a steel serpent stretches across the taiga. It runs through forests where tigers still roam, across rivers that freeze solid for half the year, over ground so cold that the earth itself is locked in permanent frost. For thousands of kilometers, it does not stop. It does not bend. It carries oil from the depths of Eastern Siberia to the factories and homes of China, a transcontinental energy highway built in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. This is the Eastern Siberia Pacific Ocean Pipeline System. The branch that runs directly to China stretches for hundreds of kilometers across remote wilderness. It moves 30 million tons of crude oil each year, enough to fill a line of tanker trucks stretching from Moscow to Beijing. And every meter of it was built in temperatures that can drop to minus 50 degrees Celsius, in terrain that offers nothing but resistance. To understand how this pipeline exists, you have to start not in Siberia, but in the steel mills where the pipe itself was born. The steel had to be different. Ordinary pipeline steel becomes brittle in extreme cold. At minus 50 degrees, the molecular structure of standard metal can shift, creating microscopic fractures that grow under pressure until the pipe fails. The engineers who designed this project knew they needed something extraordinary, steel that remained ductile even when the air itself felt like solid ice. More than 100 pipe samples from manufacturers around the world were tested. Each one was subjected to temperatures far below what the pipeline would ever face, then pressurized until it ruptured. Only one facility, the Azora pipe plant, produced steel that met the technical requirements. Its secret lay in chemistry. The molten metal was formulated with precise ratios of carbon, manganese, and microalloys that prevented the formation of brittle crystal structures during cooling. The result was a material that could flex under stress, even in the deepest Siberian winter. The manufacturing process itself was a feat of precision engineering. Steel slabs, each weighing several tons, were heated in furnaces exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius until they glowed orange-white. Rolling mills then compressed these slabs into plates with exact thickness specifications, up to 39 millimeters for the thickest sections. Every plate was measured, inspected, and graded before moving to the forming stage. Shaping the plates into pipe required a multi-step dance of hydraulic force. In the first stage, a U-shaped press began the curve. Then an O-shaped press completed the circle, transforming a flat plate into a perfect cylinder. The seam where the two edges met was welded using a 3-layer vacuum process, automated equipment that prevented air from entering the weld zone, ensuring the joint achieved maximum strength and leak tightness. Then came the testing. Every pipe section was subjected to hydrostatic pressure exceeding 420 atmospheres, 1.5 times the maximum pressure the pipeline would ever face in service. Ultrasonic scanners traced every millimeter of the weld, searching for flaws invisible to the human eye. Only sections that passed every test were allowed to proceed. Finally, the pipes were wrapped. A polymer insulation coating, specially developed for this project, was applied to protect against both the cold of Siberia and the thermal expansion that would occur as oil heated the pipeline during operation. The finished sections, each 12 meters long, each weighing nearly 9 tons, were stacked in staging yards along the construction corridor, waiting to become part of something larger than any single piece. On the ground, the scale of the project became visible. The pipeline corridor was cleared with precision, exactly following the width specified by the engineers. Bulldozers and logging crews moved ahead of the main construction teams, removing trees and leveling ground in a ribbon that stretched toward the horizon. At the edge of this cleared strip, the primary forest remained untouched, a wall of larch and pine that had stood for centuries, now marking the boundary between wilderness and industry. At field assembly yards, the pipe sections began their transformation. Some were pre-welded into longer strings to speed construction. Automated welding systems completed each joint in less than 15 minutes, a process that would have taken 3 to 4 hours using the methods of the past. One production line alone could complete more than 100 welds in a single day. But in areas where the terrain became too difficult for automated equipment, steep hills, swampy ground, rock outcrops, the welders took over.
Working in teams, they built each joint layer by layer, passing from inside to outside, ensuring that every millimeter of the seam was sound. When the weld cooled, X-ray inspection vehicles moved along the pipeline, scanning each joint for defects. Any flaw was cut out and re-welded immediately. There was no room for error. The weather offered no cooperation. Spring brought swarms of insects so dense they could obscure vision. Summer replaced them with horseflies and biting flies that made work in the open almost unbearable. Heavy rains turned the ground to slurry, transforming carefully prepared construction roads into rivers of mud that could swallow off-road vehicles to their axles. Then winter arrived, and the mud froze solid, creating new challenges as steel became brittle and exposed skin could freeze in minutes. Yet the work continued. On rocky sections, crews completed 500 meters of pipeline per day. On flat terrain, the pace doubled. 2 kilometers of steel laid, welded, inspected, and lowered into the trench every 24 hours. The trench itself had been excavated ahead of the pipelaying crews. In permafrost regions, where the ground remains frozen year-round, engineers faced a unique challenge. If the pipeline was laid directly into frozen ground, the heat from the oil would thaw the permafrost, causing the ground to settle unevenly and potentially rupturing the pipe. The solution was to elevate the pipeline on supports in some sections, allowing cold air to circulate beneath it. In other areas, the trench was insulated and the pipe was wrapped in additional layers of thermal protection before being buried. Specialized cranes lifted the welded pipe strings into the trench with centimeter precision. Once in position, the pipeline was covered with backfill, first with sand to protect the coating, then with the original soil and rock. Above ground, only the occasional valve station and the pipeline markers revealed what lay beneath. The branch pipeline from Skоворodino to the Chinese border became operational in 2011. It now carries 30 million tons of crude oil each year across the border, a steady flow of energy that has reshaped the economic relationship between the two nations. For Russia, it opened a new market for Siberian oil, reducing dependency on European buyers. For China, it provided a secure overland supply route, bypassing the maritime choke points that made other imports vulnerable. The pipeline was more than infrastructure. It was a strategic asset, buried in the earth.
But the overland pipeline was only one part of a larger vision. The full Eastern Siberia Pacific Ocean system stretches 4,700 kilometers from the oil fields of Eastern Siberia to the Pacific coast. Its scale is almost impossible to comprehend. It crosses 7 time zones. It required millions of tons of steel. It took thousands of workers years to complete, living in mobile camps that moved with the construction crews across the Russian wilderness. And yet, even as the overland pipeline was being built, another project was taking shape. This one not across frozen forests, but beneath the Baltic Sea. Nord Stream was conceived as a direct connection between Russian gas fields and European markets, bypassing the transit countries that had complicated earlier energy relationships. The shortest route on the map, however, was not the simplest on the seabed. The Baltic Sea is a semi-enclosed body of water with limited self-cleaning capacity and a long history of pollution. Every country along the proposed route, 5 in total, had its own environmental regulations, technical standards, and strategic interests. Before a single pipe could be laid, survey teams spent years mapping the seafloor. Multi-beam sonar systems created high-resolution images of the seabed. Seismic instruments analyzed sediment layers. Unmanned underwater vehicles explored areas that no human had ever seen. And everywhere, the crews searched for hazards left behind by history. The Baltic seabed is littered with unexploded munitions from World War I and World War II. Decades of shipping, fishing, and industrial activity had left chemical weapons, mines, and bombs scattered across the seafloor. Where possible, the pipeline route was adjusted to avoid these hazards. Where avoidance was impossible, the munitions had to be neutralized through controlled detonations, each one carefully planned to minimize impact on marine life. Bubble curtains were deployed around blast sites, creating walls of air that absorbed acoustic energy and protected the surrounding ecosystem. Only after the route was finalized, the environmental risks mitigated, and the legal requirements of 5 countries satisfied, could the offshore construction begin. The pipe-laying vessels that worked in the Baltic were floating factories. Their decks were organized as continuous production lines, where each stage of installation happened in sequence.
2 pipe sections, each weighing up to 24 tons, were positioned and aligned. Automated welding systems completed the circumferential weld. Inspection equipment scanned the joint for defects. Then a protective sealing system, heat shrink sleeves and elastic filler materials, was applied to prevent corrosion. As the vessel advanced along the route, the connected pipe sections were guided into the water and lowered to the seabed. In good conditions, the operation could install 3 kilometers of pipeline per day, a pace that would have seemed impossible a generation ago. But even the most advanced vessel could not simply lay pipe on an unprepared seabed. In areas with uneven terrain, specialized ships leveled depressions using rock and gravel, creating a stable foundation. In shallow waters, where waves and currents could shift exposed pipe, crews excavated trenches and buried the pipeline beneath the seabed. Where the route crossed existing cables or pipelines, rock berms were installed to protect both systems. The contrast between the 2 projects, the overland pipeline across Siberia and the offshore pipeline beneath the Baltic, reveals the complexity of modern energy infrastructure. One faced permafrost and tigers, the other faced unexploded bombs and environmental regulations. One was built in silence, across land that had known only forest for millennia. The other was negotiated through 5 national governments before a single weld was made. Yet both emerged from the same imperative, to move energy across vast distances, connecting producers to consumers, reshaping economies and geopolitics in the process. Today, the pipeline from Russia to China carries 30 million tons of oil each year. The steel that was forged in mills thousands of kilometers away now lies buried beneath the taiga, invisible to anyone passing above. The workers who built it have moved on to other projects, other frontiers, but the pipeline remains, a steel river flowing across the frozen land, carrying the energy that powers 2 of Asia's largest economies. From the rolling mills where the steel was shaped to the welding crews who worked in swarms of biting flies, from the survey vessels mapping the Baltic seabed to the pipe-laying ships advancing 3 kilometers a day, this is the story of how engineers built across the impossible. It is a story of steel and soil, of -50 degrees and summer mud, of unexploded history and carefully negotiated permits. And it is a story that continues to unfold as the world builds the energy infrastructure that will shape the coming century. If you want to understand more about the mega projects that are reshaping our world, the engineering, the logistics, and the human stories behind them, subscribe to Quick Tech Process. We explore the infrastructure that connects nations, from pipelines across Siberia to railways through Africa. Hit subscribe and join us for the next journey into the world's most ambitious construction projects.